Hey people, I read a bunch of this in Genesis 1 yesterday, that movie. And I was telling you, if you pronounce this final M as an S, it sounds more like our English. And if you pronounce it as the M, you sound more like a pirate. And I read through the first day and some other stuff. But down here on the second day, you'll see it come up in the second line in here with this little mark above it. This little S looking mark. And you'll see this in a bunch of languages. And they'll tell you it represents some letters that you don't see in there. And they'll just tell you what letters it are. And you have to learn which letters for every word. But it doesn't. Where it sits here, it means to grab the last two letters, the I and the M again. If it was directly above the M, it would just mean to grab the last letter and read the last letter after it. But when it sits out like this, it means grab the last two letters. And so it reads as an M here, and who has all him, and then the next time you read it, you grab these two is, and all him is at. Who has all him is at. And I was telling you in this word created, when it's this RA is following this AL, it reads as a AIL, NRAIL, in rail is. And so the first line in the Bible, when it starts, it says, in the beginning created. It says in raise it, in rail is. In raise it and rail is it. So when you raise the rail is the governor on your plow. And so if you raise the rail, it causes it to cut deeper. In raise it, in rail is. And so that first three words here, this means it's not for the common people. This means it's for those who are ready to dig deep, those whose brains are activated and understand. Raise it in the rail. To cut in deeper is what that means. They sat. But this is also this rail here. When you go to court, it's that rail that separates you from all the black robe Satan worshippers. And this is why they call it a bar. And they don't understand that it's not a bar, it's a rail. So in raise it, in rail, they sat. The same is, the name is, the shame, the name is what hears. And so it says, this is the law of the heavens. In raise it, in rail, in the law, they sat. The same is what hears. And so this is all the judges of the heavens. And that's what this word Torah means over here in Chronicles. They give this between now against to fit it in, but it's this tack after here that has read it, has been and been the rudder, the R-U-T-U-R, the rudder. Been the rudder, been the who's steering the boat, the control. So you're sitting in court, and in raise it in rail, the ones in behind the high desk, raise it in rail. The rail is sat. They sat the shame on what hears. Shame on you. In raise it in rail is sat. They shame on what hears. That's like the Greek gods. They're all standing around above. Shame on you. And placing bets. Where its height to of who, which cycle, upon twos, where which all his more shift, CHFT, all is more shift, all upon him is. Where its height to shape of who, which cycle upon twos, the shapes where which all is more shift, all upon him is. And we know it's talking about these shapes here for your 12 constellations, because this is the first one it talks about, the first day. It explains it well. Who am roll they see higher, who higher. The one on the top, the or, the gold, the higher. Who rail his at the hour. Who rule, who rails, who rule is at the hour. the seat of, who fills all his bin, the hour of in each shack, where he fills the time of in each shack. And I showed that movie yesterday where if you're reading it with the markings, it's where rail his a truce, backwards, a truce of Horus, to take care of the night, a truce of Horus in with of. And this next line tells perfectly, who Rael is, and if Rael his lower juice, Jus, his lower power, and when the sun goes down, will his cover a lily. And so this ancient story, the first day, the cover pushes the Ra up, and when the Ra goes down, when Ra-El goes down, old Cuffer would roll around and shit all day long, and he would go hide up in this lily that would close up in him on night. He'd roll around and get some of that stink off, And before the sun rose, when the sky lights in the morning, that lily would open up and that beetle would come back out and go roll shit all day. That's Ra, the sun, and Horus, and the lower juice, and of Horus, and Khafra, the day's going down. And if Ra-El, his lower juice, will his cover a lily and crawl into the flower. And yea, and let be, and yea are in, in the evening he's gone in, and yea in for juice, when the juice come in, hatched the first day, and opened up and came back out. And if Rael his lower juice, will his cover a lily, and yea are in, and yea in for juice hatched. So anybody new here, I'm not translating this, I'm reading what's on the page. They got everybody fooled thinking Hebrew means some ancient foreign language, Arabic. It's not. Hebrew is an ancient English language. The brew just means the alchemy that goes along with figuring out all the special marks and tricks in it. Who role, who his job, they see her fi, her loyalty, her fi of, into semis, semis, hemis, that's your Greek and Latin word for halves. Who role, they see her fi of into semis, into halves, and she gets half. Who him, why him victual, who him bottle. This is without the I, it's victual, and it means to fill, but with the I, it means the space. Who him victual, who him bottle, who in space. The space Benham is Lamis, L-M-I-S. Lamis is this ancient gods of the zodiac, and it's the ones that are on call, the gods to call upon, on the gods, the high, and to call. You see it represented like this often. This come from the ancient Assyrians, Sumerians. These are the ancient English speakers. It's where your word calendar come from, the call, the name of the god under, the call under. And the same is on call, if you're on call, this is the god that'll be taking care of your problems today, the one that's on call. Who role they see her fi of, into semis, who him bottle, or in dial, the one you dialed up, the one you selected, into semis, into halves, who him in dial, and by name, B-Y-N, by the name is Lamis. Why is all him is at her fi of, who victual by name Asserm the teller fi of, by the name asserm, to confirm the tell her fi of. And by name is asserm all or fi of who they can. And so it looks like that's how this word malarkey come about, because the heavens were shifting, and more shift all upon, hovering over the face, more shift all upon, and the heavens were shifting, and so all this old astrology wasn't working, and so somebody who couldn't figure it out, they just said, malarkey means something, this bullshit. And this means, and by name, because this is the word between. You see in the Greek, between the waters is by name. And you see it over here in the Greek, and names on to date as. That's what the heavens do. They give you the names for the date. You see it in this Greek word for the heaven, the hour on of. Look up to see where the sun's at, the hour on of, which is different from the firmament, which is the stereo from at as, all around you, the stereo, the starum at as. Look it up at the star home at as, where the stars are living. And a name is on too. And by name is asserm all or fi of who they can. And you see here in the Greek, and the call is in of those two. The star home of ran on. The star home of ran on, what it's turning. And if the rail they slurify, and if the rule they slurify of shame is who they are in, of name 'em who they are in yea, and let be, and let there be, and yea, in forge's sign. So if they slurify, if they get off the rail, they slurify. You talk about the government, of shame who they are in, and let there be, and yea, and let there be, and forge a sign. So it starts with, in raise it raw, the Beatles raising the sun, in raise it raw L. To the shame is what hears, where its height to, of who which cycle he raises up to the height to which its cycle upon twos, upon shapes, where which all his more is, you see it in the Egyptian, something sitting on top of a stand is more. It means higher, which more shift, which higher shift, all upon him is, all upon him is. And then it talks about his role of the oar, is the high oar, the one that's hiring, and he is the high oar. He's steering the boat. And then Ra'el, he's at Horus, the horoscope, the hour sea. The hour sea to buy victual, to buy fill. All him been the hour of in each shack. And then at the end of the day, and if Ra'el, his lower juice, when the sun goes down, will discover the lily, who they are in, who they in forges hatched, come out the next morning hatched. And roll they see her phi of into, her phi, high intensity radiation field, her phi. And roll they see her phi, her loyalty of, into halves, into semis, who him in dial, in selective, in a select, who him in dial, Benham is. Benham is Lamis, who they dial up of the 12 Lamis. why is all is at, why, who, as, all them as, all him is at. The herf, the her fi of, her fi, her faithful of, something that's always going to be there. Something like the North Star that doesn't move, her fi of. The planets are moving around on her fi, the stars are always there. Who fill by name is a serm, the teller fi of. And by name is a serm, all her fi of who they can. And so under the firmament, that's the planets from the teller fi of. And so, and who has all him is at her fi of, that space in the heaven, and who Viddle, who's been sitting there eating. Who Viddle Benham is, where he's been retrograde, Benham is, been vittling, been eating. A serm the teller fi of, a serm, a sermon to that tell her fi of. And that'll be all the Bible. There'll be a serm, to tell where the planets are, to tell the time. The names of the days, the names is a serm that the tailorify. Everything's tailored to that day, where the planets are on that day. And the tailorify of, and by name is a serm all or fi of. And the name from the stereo, from the starry home, who they can, or who hence, H-I-N-C backwards, who hence in, hence, when going away, when leaving. And by name is a serm all or fi of, who hence in, when leaving. And if Ra'el they slur, they talk bad, the slur the fi, if they get off track of shame 'em, that's where you name 'em. Name 'em at the slur. And if rail they slur fi of, shame 'em who they are in, name 'em who they are in, who they enforge a sign. And then the third day's longer, but what it looks like it says is take the three names. Who roll they see few, the few wimmies, and so the swimmies was in the waters, the fish, the things that live in the waters, the wimmies, and the few waters, the three waters, the three halves, hemis. And so that makes me think, that emis actually just means a division, and three vemis is thirds, and two hemis is halves. And who roll they see few vemis. From that the shame is all from fuse. To fuse all three of the names together to one, and hatched. And the shame 'em all from fuse hatch, to hatch one name out of the three. And I'll read on to this the next movie.
Don't forget, hurry, I won't forget.
Alright, I'm gonna cut this off here. Good day.